Morning, everyone. It is Rolly. And so, welcome to day 23 of our Soulful journey, exploring your shadow self. So, we're talking about our shadow selves. And so, when we say that, sometimes people are like, what does that mean? And so, there are all parts of ourselves that we want to change or that we're not okay with. And so, that's what this shadow self part of the conversation is being able to have a look at what are some of the things that we do. So, shadow self is referred to in is referred to by Carl Jung, who is a psychology expert. So, like when you actually study psychology, he is one of the people. There's others as well, but he's one of the people that you hear about a lot. And so, one of the things that he refers to is that unconscious self. And so, and we all have an unconscious self. So when we have what it is that's going on, what we see out in the present, the things that we share, the things that we put out there. But then there's also the parts of us that we kind of keep to ourselves and or we don't even address them ourselves. So a really good example of the whole shadow and how that part of it works. I'm saying a lot this morning. But the one of the things that we need to look at is, so for example, if I were to, so prior to setting boundaries, so not to say that this never happens ever anymore, but one of the things when I learned to be able to set boundaries and be respectful of myself that way, and say no when I really want to say no versus saying yes when I want to say yes. And so those are one of the things in terms of setting those boundaries. But what would happen is I would say yes to someone or something, and then I would actually feel anger and resentment because it's like they always do this to me and now I have to do this again. And like, why is this happening? And like I said, it's not that it never happens anymore, but it happens more seldom. And so when we actually look at that piece of the anger and the resentment, that's that part of that shadow self. And that's that part that we need to take a look at. Why are we feeling resentful? Is it because we want to say no when but yet we're saying yes? Or is it because we have some hidden jealousy about what it is that's going on or what's happening? Like, how come they get to go and do all these things and I don't get to do all these things? Or I get stuck with all the things versus them not being able to, and that they can say no versus saying yes. And so all these different things allows us to be able to have a look at like how we are going and what's those underlying feelings, what are those things that we've been stuffing and not addressing, whether consciously or unconsciously. And if it's unconscious, sometimes it's going to take a little bit more work to try and figure that part out. But the other part of tapping into exploring your shadow self is being able to confront the uncomfortable. And so a lot of times when we're stuffing these things that we don't want to address, they are there because we want to, we just don't want to deal with them. And so that's one of the things to remember is being able to go back and dealing with these feelings of whatever it is that's coming up. And sometimes it's just easier to just leave them and not worry about them. And so so back in 94, when I got sick and I wasn't able to work anymore, and I really needed to like revamp my entire life while I was actually doing therapy, one of the things that I discovered was that I was not addressing some feelings that had come up with a family member that I had really not been dealing with. And so I just thought, I was like, oh yeah, like I've set that all up and it's not a big deal. And I've cut ties with that person. I'm not having anything to do with that person anymore. But then when I went back to look at what it is that was happening, then it was like, no, these feelings are coming up in my other relationships, these feelings of anger and resentment towards this one person, also the hurt and the grief of losing this relationship. Those were all things that I was not dealing with until I was looking at them. And then it was like, okay, so all the surface stuff of all this other things that were going on was really to do with this particular relationship that I had cut ties with like years before that. And so it's just really important for us to be able to have a look at those things. And then so that kind of leads into those shadows in relationships. We sometimes allow ourselves to just put up with, and I'm going to use the word put up because we do not set limits or boundaries around certain people or certain things because that's just the way that that it is, or that's just what happens. And it's like, that's still not okay. And so if it's not okay for you, it may be okay in a general sense where it's not a big deal to the world wide. But for us, if it's not okay for us, then it's not okay for us. And so being able to talking about what's going on within those relationships that we are still holding on to, and being able to deal with these things is really, really important. And so and then that kind of leads into that integrity that we were talking about. So we were talking about at the beginning, near the beginning, I think it was day one, actually, we talked about that integrity of being ourselves and being honest with ourselves. And like I said, so when we know that the same things are happening over and over and over again, then there's something that's going on that we need to maybe take a look at and figure out how come this is happening. What is it that we're doing to attract that particular event or series of events or these people in our lives? And how can we actually make changes to have a better and healthier life with what's going on? So these are the kind of things that we need to have a look at. And this is what we're talking about in terms of the shadow self. And so, of course, I have a worksheet. If you are interested, I have a shadow work journal prompt. And so if you would like to have that, then send me an email at info@rollyalaire.ca, and we will get that off to you, and we will talk soon. Bye for now.